one of your most impressive things to me is the Son of Earp series, and we've reached an era, kind of all of a sudden, where sort of horror supernatural western is kind of becoming everybody's thing. Where everybody's got a book going, and a few publishers focused in on it, which is what kind of inspired a lot of it. But before all that, you were putting out the Son of Earp series, which, in my opinion, has like, if I just wanted to read it as a western, you have the feel, you have the grit, you have all that stuff from a guy who obviously loves them, and then the supernatural elements are weaved in really nicely from a guy who knows how to write horror. Talk to me a little bit about how that series started and sort of where you are now with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I I knew that it was a super small niche when I started doing it.
Right.
And this really came out of when I was growing up. My father obviously was a boy of the 50s, so he grew up watching all the Western shows and serials and stuff, which is, a lot of my process comes back to this growing up watching the serials with my father, like on weekends and stuff, watching Rifleman and Gunsmoke. And, he liked Bonanza. I never really got into Bonanza, but, um, Rawhide, all that stuff. And, I used to be annoyed because he would like make us watch some of
Yeah.
that stuff, and I was like, I'm not in, as a kid, I was a sci-fi kid,
Right.
Star Wars and Star Trek and uh, Hardy Boys and all that. So I was not into westerns, and I kind of fought that, but it was a real integral part of my bonding with my father. One of the few times I got to spend, like not happy time, but like non-working time with him. Um, and so when I started writing and publishing, I was putting out horror books and all this stuff, and that was the goal. And my father was just like, what do and he's a prolific reader. I mean, back in the day, he would read like a novel a day. And this
Wow.
guy worked like two jobs and would work like 15-hour, days and stuff. Never stopped working to provide for the family. And, but he always read at night, and he read a ton. I mean, he would just go through books and books and books, and he read westerns and thrillers and spies and blah blah blah, some bestsellers and stuff. And um, his whole thing was always like, well, horror is not a real genre. He's like that's goofy stuff. And I mean, he always thought that about, I was always into horror movies and stuff, and I was always into heavy metal, and all that stuff was goofy to him. He was into country music and western. So um, it was really like a last ditch effort for me to try and get my father to love me. Not that he didn't. I mean, he always loved me and he
Yeah, yeah, I
treated me
understand.
well. So, but it was like, hey, I want to impress my dad because he doesn't seem to be impressed by the fact that I'm like writing books and publishing. So I was like, I'm going to write supernatural westerns because that way I'll be able to. He'll read. He refused to read my stuff because he doesn't like horror. And I was like, well, I'll write supernatural westerns, and then he'll have to read it because it's got western stuff. Um, and he did, and it's funny because he critiqued me because he's like, oh, they wouldn't wear chaps in a bar. He's like, chaps are from when they're out riding and blah blah. So like he would give me corrective feedback and stuff, but he actually read the books, and so I guess I did my job. I finally pulled my dad in and got him to read some of my stuff. So that's where it came from. So that is why I started it, was because I wanted to prove something to my father. And yeah, it was funny that I was doing that, knowing that at the time nobody was reading westerns or looking into that,
Right.
or even thinking about it. And I love the fact that everybody's into it now. At first I got a little jealous. I was like, damn it, I've been putting this stuff out, and
Yeah.
all these other people are coming into my space now. But now I love it
Right.
because it's like, hey, maybe people will discover me more now because now that's a thing. So yeah, but that's where it came from, and I actually like that series. I think the most. For some reason, the characters are always in my head, and I get a lot of good feedback on that series from people that they like that series better than some of my other series. So it's a lot of fun.
I like what you're putting out there just all around. And like, you have that one which has a certain feel to it, and then you look at like the Caged novels that are much rougher, and some of the others that you go a little more extreme on.
Hmm.
And Son of Earp series really doesn't pull punches. You got the horror in there as well, depending on the book, where it's either more supernatural or more horror, that kind of thing. But I do like that one most, just in terms of voice and everything. It has a balance to it that not just you, but most authors have trouble capturing in a series. There's always, you look at a series and there's always something where you're like, well, if it was a little more this or a little less that, like maybe it would be better, that kind of thing. But that's one of those series where it's like, yeah, there's no knobs I would adjust on this one. I like what you're doing, and I like how it's progressing, and of course I believe your Nano book is like the next one in that series too, right?
Yeah, and by the way, wow, thank you for that because I mean, again, it means so much coming from somebody like you that I really look up to. But yeah, I'm writing the fifth one. So the goal is to have seven, because as I researched Wyatt Earp, he had kind of shifted around the country to different places. Actually, I had the series set up for 6 books, because I was unaware of one of the places that he had gone to, which I discovered from a reader who, the first year that you and I and Armand were at Jekyll Island, JekyllCon, an older gentleman who was into westerns decided to give my books a try, and he bought my Son of Earp series then, and I think I had 2 books then. I can't remember.
I don't
I may
remember.
have had 3. And I was talking to him about the story, and I said, yeah, so my goal is kind of, James is chasing his father, because he wants to catch up to him and follow in his footsteps. And so, he basically goes to the 6 places that, Wyatt Earp had lived in. And the guy was like, well, what about this place? And he told me about the 7th place. I was like, I didn't know about that one. He's like, well, you better get back and do your research because, it was this place too. And I was like, okay, if you continue reading the series, I'm going to put the 7th one in. So the book is going to, the series is going to go to 7 for sure.